Why super empaths always attract avoidance is because the super empath keeps trying to create safety with someone whose deepest fear is being fully seen. There is a painful kind of connection that feels spiritual at first. It feels rare. It feels magnetic. It feels like two wounded worlds recognizing each other in silence. The super empath meets someone quiet, distant, controlled, mysterious, emotionally private, and something inside them leans closer. Not because they want pain, not because they enjoy being ignored, not because they are foolish, but because they can feel there is more beneath the surface. They can feel the sadness behind the silence, the fear behind the distance, the child behind the emotional wall, the love behind the guarded behavior. And because the super empath feels what others miss, they start believing they are the one who can reach what no one else has reached. That is where the pattern begins. The avoidant does not always arrive looking cruel. Sometimes they arrive calm, interesting, deep, hard to read. They do not overwhelm the super empath with too much emotion at once. They give just enough warmth to create hope, just enough distance to create hunger, just enough vulnerability to make the empath believe something sacred is hidden inside them. And to a super empath, hidden pain can feel like a calling, but not every hidden wound is your assignment. That sentence is where healing begins, because the super empath often confuses emotional perception with emotional responsibility. They think, if I can feel their pain, maybe I am supposed to help them. They think, if I understand why they pull away, maybe I should be more patient. They think, if I love them correctly, maybe they will finally feel safe enough to stay. But love cannot rescue someone who is committed to hiding from intimacy. Love can invite, love can support, love can witness, but love cannot force a locked heart to become a home. There is a woman staring at her phone late at night. The room is quiet. The screen is bright. She sent a message hours ago. Nothing demanding, nothing dramatic, just something honest, something warm, something simple. And now she is waiting. She tells herself he is busy. Then she tells herself he needs space. Then she tells herself she should not be needy. Then she starts rereading the message, searching for the sentence that may have made him pull away. This is how it starts. The super empath becomes the detective of someone else's distance. She studies tone, timing, silence, energy, the difference between yesterday's warmth and today's coldness. She knows something has shifted before he admits anything has shifted. She feels the emotional door closing while he says, everything is fine. And because she can feel the distance, she starts trying to repair it. She sends a softer message. She gives more space. She becomes careful. She becomes understanding. She becomes smaller. And slowly, the relationship becomes a place where she is always adjusting herself around someone else's fear of closeness. That is not love. That is emotional survival wearing the mask of patience. A super empath attracts avoidance because both are carrying opposite wounds. The super empath often fears emotional abandonment. The avoidant often fears emotional engulfment. The super empath says, come closer so I can feel safe. The avoidant says, give me distance so I can feel safe. The super empath feels distance as rejection. The avoidant feels closeness as pressure. The super empath tries to talk. The avoidant shuts down. The super empath explains. The avoidant withdraws. The super empath reaches. The avoidant retreats, and the more he retreats, the more her nervous system feels danger. The more she reaches, the more his nervous system feels trapped. This is not always about bad people. Sometimes it is two wounded nervous systems speaking different languages and calling the pain chemistry, but chemistry is not always compatibility. Sometimes chemistry is your wound recognizing a familiar battlefield. That is why this connection can feel so intense. The super empath is not only attracted to the person, they are attracted to the possibility of finally being chosen by someone who is difficult to reach. Somewhere deep inside, there may be an old wound saying, if I can make this person stay, maybe it means I was always worth staying for. That wound can keep an empath attached far longer than love should, because the avoidant gives them moments, a deep conversation at midnight, a rare confession, a soft look, a message after distance, a sudden return after coldness. A moment of warmth that feels like proof, and the super empath builds hope around those moments. But a moment is not a pattern. A doorway is not a home. One night of vulnerability does not equal emotional availability. A person can open a window and still never let you live in the house. That is the truth the super empath must face. The avoidant may care. They may feel deeply. They may miss the empath. They may be drawn to her light, her softness, her patience, her emotional intelligence, her ability to make them feel safe without judgment. But caring is not the same as capacity. A person can care about you and still not have the emotional capacity to love you safely. A person can miss you and still repeat the same distance. A person can feel connected to you and still run the moment. Connection requires responsibility. A person can want love and still fear the demands of intimacy. And the super empath must stop turning someone's fear into a reason to abandon herself. There is a woman sitting beside a man who feels far away, even though he is right there. His body is near, his voice is calm, his face gives nothing away. The room is quiet, but not peaceful. She asks, "Are you okay?" He says, "I'm fine." But her body knows. His fine has a wall behind it. His silence is not rest. It is withdrawal. His distance is not space. It is emotional disappearance. And she feels that old ache rise inside her, the ache of being beside someone and still feeling alone. A shared bed can still feel colder than an empty room when the person beside you has emotionally left. That kind of loneliness is what breaks a super empath slowly, not the absence of love, the presence of someone who makes love feel unreachable. And the strange thing is, avoidants are often attracted to super empaths for the same reason they eventually fear them. The super empath feels safe at first. They listen without judgment. They give warmth. They understand complexity. They do not demand too much too fast. They can sense pain without mocking it. They make the avoidant feel seen in a way that is rare, but then the avoidant realizes something. This person sees too much. They see behind the performance. They feel the emotional distance. They notice inconsistency. They remember patterns. They can tell when words and energy do not match. And suddenly the same depth that felt healing begins to feel exposing. So the avoidant pulls away, not always because they do not care, sometimes because being seen deeply feels like losing control. And the super empath must understand this. You cannot love someone into being comfortable with intimacy if they are still loyal to their own emotional hiding place. They must choose that work. They must want to become safe. They must want to stop disappearing. They must want to communicate instead of withdraw. They must want to repair instead of reset. They must want connection more than the comfort of avoidance. If they do not, your love becomes a place where you keep waiting outside a locked door. And the super empath was not born to spend her life standing in hallways. She was born to be met. There's another painful part. Super empaths often attract avoidants because they are patient with distance. Too patient. They can explain it. They can feel compassion for it. They can say, he has been hurt before. He needs time. He is scared. He is not used to love like this. He does not know how to express emotions. And maybe all of that is true, but truth does not erase impact. His wound may explain his distance, but it does not make your loneliness harmless. His fear may explain his silence, but it does not make your anxiety imaginary. His past may explain his avoidance, but it does not give him permission to keep making you feel emotionally unsafe. A mature empath can hold compassion and standards at the same time. That is the shift. The wounded empath says, I understand why you hurt me, so I will stay. The healed empath says, I understand why you hurt me, but I will still protect myself. That is where power returns. There is a woman typing a long message. She wants to explain her needs carefully. She wants to make sure she does not sound demanding. She wants to say, I know you need space, but I also need consistency. She writes it gently. Then she softens it more. Then she adds, I'm not trying to pressure you. Then she adds, I just want to understand. Then she stops because something inside her finally whispers, why am I making my need for emotional safety sound like an apology? That whisper is the beginning of awakening. A super empath does not need to apologize for needing consistency. She does not need to apologize for wanting communication. She does not need to apologize for being hurt by hot and cold behavior. She does not need to apologize for wanting a love that does not make her nervous system feel like it is waiting for the next disappearance. She is not too much. She is asking the wrong person to meet her in a place they keep running from, and that is the painful truth. Sometimes the super empath keeps trying to make an avoidant emotionally available because they do not want to accept that love alone is not enough. Love is not enough without emotional maturity. Love is not enough without consistency. Love is not enough without accountability. Love is not enough if one person is always reaching and the other is always retreating. Love is not enough if closeness keeps feeling like a reward after punishment. Love is not enough if your body feels unsafe in the relationship your heart keeps defending. That is why the super empath must learn to watch the pattern, not the promise. The promise says, I care. The pattern says, I disappear. The promise says, I miss you. The pattern says, I come close only when I feel you pulling away. The promise says, I want this. Pattern says, I panic when intimacy becomes real. The promise says, you matter. The pattern says, your emotional needs are inconvenient. Believe the pattern not because words never matter, but because words without behavior become emotional seduction. And super empaths are often seduced by potential. They see what someone could become. They feel the good inside them. They sense the tenderness beneath the armor. They fall in love not only with the person, but with the possible version of the person, the healed version, the open version, the consistent version, the emotionally safe version. But potential cannot hold you at night. Potential cannot give you peace. Potential cannot repair a nervous system that is tired of waiting. Potential is not a relationship. Port Talbot is. There is a woman who finally stops chasing, not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly. She stops sending the extra message. She stops asking if he is okay every time his energy changes. She stops doing emotional maintenance on a connection that keeps draining her. She stops trying to prove she is safe enough to be loved. At first, the silence feels terrifying. Then it becomes revealing because when she stops reaching, the relationship shows its real shape. If it disappears, she was carrying it. If it becomes colder, she was warming it alone. If he only returns when he senses she is done, then he was responding to loss of access, not the presence of love. That truth hurts, but it sets her free. The super empath must learn that not every return is proof of love. Sometimes people return because the comfort they used to receive is no longer available. Sometimes they miss the emotional regulation, the attention, the forgiveness, the safe place, the warmth, the way the empath made their chaos feel less lonely. But missing what you provided is not the same as being ready to love who you are. That is why the empath has to ask better questions. This person meet me when I am calm or only when I am leaving? Do they communicate when things are uncomfortable or disappear? Do they care about how their distance affects me? Do they repair or just return? Do they respect my boundaries or punish them? Do they love my depth or only the comfort my depth gives them? These questions protect the heart, and the answer is not in the most emotional moment. The answer is in the repeated pattern. The practical step is simple, but it will not feel easy. When an avoidant pulls away, do not immediately chase. Do not send 5 messages. Do not write the emotional essay from panic. Do not abandon your own body to regulate theirs. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this healthy space or is this emotional abandonment? Healthy space communicates. Avoidance disappears. Healthy space says, I need some time, but I am still here. Avoidance goes cold and lets you panic. Healthy space returns with care. Avoidance returns expecting everything to reset. Healthy space respects your nervous system. Avoidance makes your nervous system pay for their fear. Once you see the difference, respond from dignity. One sentence. I respect your need for space, but I cannot stay in a pattern where distance becomes emotional abandonment. Then stop. Do not decorate the boundary until it loses power. Do not over-explain your pain until your self-respect sounds like a request. Do not try to convince someone that emotional safety matters. The person who wants to love you safely will care. The person who wants access without responsibility will argue. That is how you will know. There is a woman locking her door at night after finally choosing not to return to the cycle. The quiet feels big. She misses the good moments. She misses the version of him who felt close. She misses the hope more than the reality. But then her body exhales. No one is making her wait tonight. No one is turning silence into punishment. No one is making her feel needy for wanting consistency. No one is pulling her into the old dance of reaching and retreating. For the first time in a long time, she feels lonely, but not unsafe. That is progress, because the super empath's healing begins when peace becomes more important than the person who triggers the wound. She may still want love. She may still miss companionship. She may still have a soft heart, but she is no longer willing to be emotionally abandoned beside someone and call it devotion. She is no longer willing to chase a person who keeps running from the very intimacy they awakened in her. She is no longer willing to become smaller so someone else can feel less pressured by her truth. This is when she becomes powerful, not because she stops loving avoidance. Because she stops being chosen by the pattern, she starts choosing herself. And when a super empath chooses herself, the old attachment begins to lose its grip. Guilt loses power. Silence loses power. Rare warmth loses power. The apology without change loses power. The fantasy of potential loses power because she has learned the difference between being loved and being activated. That difference is everything. Being activated feels urgent. Being loved feels safe. Being activated makes you overthink. Being loved lets you breathe. Being activated makes you chase clarity. Being loved creates it. Being activated makes you feel like you are always one wrong word away from distance. Being loved makes room for your truth. The super empath must stop calling activation destiny. Sometimes the nervous system is not saying, this is your person. Sometimes it is saying, this is your pattern. And once she understands that, she can break the cycle, not by hating avoidance, not by demonizing them, not by becoming cold, but by refusing to abandon herself inside someone else's fear, because an avoidance fear of closeness is their healing work. An empath's fear of abandonment is her healing work. Two people can love each other, but if neither takes responsibility for their wound, love becomes a battlefield of triggers. The super empath's power is not in rescuing the avoidant. It is in recognizing the dance and stepping out of it. It is in saying, I can understand your fear, but I will not live inside it. It is in saying, I can love deeply, but not at the cost of my peace. It is in saying, I am not here to prove my worth by making an emotionally unavailable person stay. That sentence is freedom. There is a final version of the super empath waiting beyond this pattern. She is not bitter. She is not hard. She is not against love. She is simply done confusing distance with depth. She does not chase silence. She does not romanticize inconsistency. She does not worship potential. She does not give full access to half-safe people. She does not call anxiety attraction. She does not call crumbs connection. She does not call abandonment space. She is still soft, but her softness has standards. She is still loving, but her love has discernment. She still feels deeply, but she no longer carries every feeling like a command. And when love comes again, it will not have to be forced open. It will not make her beg for emotional presence. It will not punish her for needing reassurance. It will not disappear the moment closeness becomes real. It will meet her calmly, clearly, consistently. Because the super empath was never too much. She was simply too deep for someone who is still running from their own emotional depth. Why super empaths always attract avoidance is not because super empaths are broken. It is because their light feels safe to people who fear intimacy, and their wound feels familiar with people who offer closeness in fragments. But the healed super empath learns the truth. Love that keeps making you chase emotional presence is not proof of depth. It is proof that your heart has been trying to make a home out of someone else's locked door.